Good friends and relatives, thank you for being here on behalf of my sister and me. Thank you all for being here. My mother was the most determined person I ever met. Now, I work in a law firm full of people who won't take no for an answer. So when I talk determination, I know what I'm talking about. When she set her mind to something, you had better get in line or get out of the way, because she was going to get there, whatever it took. So today what I want to do is celebrate not the shell of a woman that some of you saw over the last year and a half, but this sassy, saucy lady who fell in love with this handsome man and had a fabulous life together. She started out as a blonde, and she naturally became a blonde with red hair, and then a redhead, and then a redhead with brown hair, and then a brown-haired with red, and then brown with gray, and then gray with brown, and then gray. Ultimately, it was all gray. But she went through a lot of changes over that period of time, not just in her natural hair color. She was the daughter of an immigrant Russian butcher. And by the time she was a teenager, she'd made herself into a professional dancer. And by the time she was 17, she was out on the road working as a solo performer. That's determination. She met and fell in love with my dad, who was an Italian Catholic. She married him despite her father's disapproval. She was disowned by her own father and all his siblings save one for 7 years. And then they reconciled. What love, what commitment, what determination must that have taken to go through that? PJ and Vincent and I get our determination honestly. So she reconciled with her father after 7 years, and she never really talked about that much with us. She didn't seem to hold a grudge about it, which amazes me to this day. That once things were reconciled, they were reconciled. I mean, she never lost touch with her brother and sisters, but it was just in the past. It was over. And about that time, about the time of the reconciliation, I was born, and Mom and Dad built their first home. They didn't hire a contractor, they built their home with their own 4 hands. They had help with the masonry and the roof. They did everything else themselves. That's determination. 12 years later, when we lived in Houston, they built another home. This time they got a contractor, but PJ and Mom and Dad and I had the pleasure of building the entire air conditioning system, and doing all the electrical work, and helping with some of the plumbing. So even though there was a contractor, they were still determined to do it their way. I remember 10 years after my dad died, my mom was 70 years old, and she called me on the phone and said, "Well, I just fixed the swimming pool pump." You know, I mean, she was determined that she could do something. She went and did it. And so Vincent and PJ and I get our fascination with mechanical things kind of honestly, too. Some great stories. In the 1950s, my parents went to Las Vegas for the first time together. My dad had shot craps on blankets in the trains in North Africa during World War II, but my mom had never been to a crap table before. She didn't know what to do. And so she asked my dad, "How do I do this?" And he said, "Oh no, when you lose your money, I don't want you to blame me. You put your money on the table there and that dealer there. Ask him what to do. He'll tell you what to do." So my mom took $100 and ran it up into $30,000. But she did that by doubling up and doubling up and doubling up, and then she lost the whole 30. And I said to my dad, "You were making $6,000 or $8,000 a year as a government engineer. How could you not rake some of that money while she was winning?" And he said, "Oh no, it was her money. I wasn't going to tell her what to do." So PJ and I get our fascination with gambling, honestly. She was so fully committed to being a devoted wife and mother that she gave up performing professionally. Even though she was Jewish, she taught my sister and me our Baltimore Catechism, because that was part of our homework in going to Catholic school. She became the nuns' go-to person. You know, if they needed to take a nun to the airport or go pick up a nun at Union Station in Washington, or the nuns wanted a tour of the city, my mom got a call and she dove right in and helped, even though she wasn't a Catholic. My mom always thought there was a right way to do everything. There was a right way to dress for every occasion. There was a right thing to say in every situation. If you made straight A's, she would say how great that was, and then she would say that there was something better that you could do. She was never satisfied. She wanted everything to be perfect all the time. She would always criticize every meal when we went out to eat. There was always something to criticize. About 2 years ago, I took her to the Palm for dinner one night, and we were eating, and my mom looked up at me and said, "This is one of the best steaks I've ever had." And I nearly fell out of the chair. Just wasn't fair. We took a trip to Barbados once, and the first morning Mom went down to breakfast at an outside cafe that they had, and the coffee they served her was cold. And so she complained about that. So the second day when she went down for breakfast, they brought her the hottest, most scalding coffee she ever had in her life, and she couldn't drink it, so she complained about it. The next day we nicknamed her Goldilocks, and we called her that for years. My mom was never afraid to pitch in and help people. She helped a lot of young magicians, some of whom are here today. She helped at the garden club. She helped at PJ's office when somebody didn't show up who was sick. She helped at the swim team. She did everything that could be done for the magic associations. Anything that needed to be done, she pitched in and did it. So PJ and Vincent and I get our nonprofit work honestly too. She was a child of the Depression. She watched her pennies. PJ and Sean have been going through the house, throwing things away. Sean found the electric bills all the way back to 1949. Each one of them carefully folded with a check stapled to it that had paid the bill and filed in chronological order. Now, they lived in 4 houses after 1949, so she moved all these bills over and over again for some reason. Okay, she wasn't a packer. She was a hoarder. And so those of you who have been in my office and you see those boxes I could have thrown away 24 years ago, we get that on. I want to read you something that was written by one of her nephews. It could have been written by any of her nieces or nephews. It could have been written by any of those adopted kids at the Magic Club, because she adopted so many people. Dear Aunt Terry, just a quick note to let you know that I'm thinking about you. I've always been able to talk with you about anything, even easier than I can talk with my mom. Maybe that's because you're not. In any case, I want you to know that I think about you often and that you're one of my favorite people in the whole world. As I say, I think that could have come from just about anybody in the family, or from a lot of people outside of the family. One of the last trips that we made with Mom was a 2-hour drive over to La Berge du Lac to see Tony Bennett. And she was declining fast by that time, and it made her very tired to take a 2-hour trip. But she was so excited to be there. She loved the performance. We looked at each other and said how much we loved each other while Tony Bennett was singing some love song. After the show, there was a meet and greet. And here's Tony and my mom. And it reminds me of how she soldiered on for the last few years. You know, here he is at 82 years old, still out on the road singing. She was 87 at that time and still soldiering on. That's the person I remember, a person of great determination, as devoted and demanding and supportive a mother as anybody could ever have. Rabbi, it's all yours.